think that that sort of dichotomy and dualism that I read on your blog is the exact script that Majestic would want people to buy into to support interplanetary war. And I think that there is another...
I think a paranoia over interplanetary war per se, and that scenario, is laudable. Okay, in a certain way, we understand that you're coming from a heartfelt perspective when you talk about let's not get caught up in polarities, okay? But what we don't want to do is analyze this scene, this scenario, and the realities that are out there, and say we've come to definitive statement where we can say there are only good ETs. Now let me tell you why that's dangerous as well. Because what that does is leave people, humans, and humanity possibly in general, in a vulnerable position, because they are then going around following ET like the Pied Piper down whatever road they're taking.
No, I have always said, and unfortunately you haven't read my books and things, but...
Actually I have.
Well, and I have made it very clear that there are two things that are equally dangerous. The deification of these visitors or the demonization of them. Each are equally dangerous, and I've said this since the early 90s.
And then we're in agreement, but what you said on stage was not that.
I didn't deify them, and I didn't demonize them. My point is that we're living in a universe together. We're going to have to live together in that universe.
Absolutely.
The solutions are not going to be name-calling and we're better than you are, and those are in service to self and those are the service to others, and this whole thing. Because I think that we have to look at this from a much larger picture, and that is not only Earth, but the whole cosmos is going through a quantum moment. It is not just an Earth moment, it's a universal moment.
Absolutely.
And the hallmark of which is universal peace. And the hallmark of which is good. And so it is also true that interstellar civilizations are not allowed to leave their biosphere until they have become in agreement for peace. Now, and
that's an assumption.
This has been proven. Because if these,
no way, nothing has been proven on this planet
if these civilizations
on that degree of sophistication.
Well, if they were here, if they were here and they were invading and they were hostile, they would not have waited for us to have the kind of weapons we have today. They would have absolutely shut this civilization down.
On the contrary, I mean, there's actually we have to actually get into a whole sociopolitical look at what it is to be an ET spacefaring culture in search of planetoids or planets and building new environments, and then what you do with them. In a sense, you can actually take the Earth as a microcosm, and you can look at how did it go when we took over different continents here. And what was the model, and then we get to space, and we also have to... This is a huge problem.
You're engaging in an anthropocentric projection onto interstellar civilizations.
As above, so below.
Well, in your belief, but I think that you're completely incorrect.
All I'm saying is we're part of the universe, and that you can't eliminate, and there's no definitive decision on this part. You're making absolute statements.
Do you think our classified projects have traveled interstellar yet?
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, they have not. Okay. Now,
we've got evidence that they have.
Well, I'd love to see you prove it, because but
we don't have evidence, but in May 2001 you said that we have superluminal capability.
Yes.
What are we doing? Going to Pluto with superluminal capability? It takes 5 seconds.
No, because they're not allowed to use it. Now, here's something that there is a quarantine on this planet until we become peaceful. And this is why, if you listen...
There's a philosophy that there's a quarantine.
No, there is. And if you look at even what Neil Armstrong said...
Why? Because an ET told you? I mean, really, let's get down to it.
Well, let's get back there. Let's talk about what Neil Armstrong was heard saying. It's in Timothy Good's book, Above Top Secret. You can read it.
Yep.
And I'm sure you have.
A mind-controlled astronaut is what you're talking about. You're going to give me testimony from a mind-controlled astronaut.
No,
Let's see where this goes.
He said that when we were basically warned off the moon, and that's why we didn't continue.
And I believe these warnings exist. There has been evidence that we're warned off Mars because certain craft have never made it there, have been shot down, have been disappeared, have had technical problems that haven't been explained by NASA.
One can put a xenophobic spin on that, or one can say perhaps there's a wiser cosmic order that says that until a civilization reaches a certain amount of civility for the civilization and peace, they are not allowed to travel amongst the stars. That the entry ticket is peace. And I think that is the situation.
Okay, I understand that's your philosophy.
No, it's not my philosophy. It's what the evidence, this is not how I started out. This is what I have found to be true from many different witness testimonies and the observation overall and aggregate.
But our witness testimony would contradict that.
Well, fine. I'd
So
like
what
to
do you
speak
do
to
with
them.
that? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe we'll have to compare notes because,
Yeah.
you know, really, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
this is valuable. Because what happens is, you know, for
Right.
better or worse, we're both out there. We're both investigating these questions, and they are open questions that actually
They are, but I think it's
the
rather unhelpful
information
if you
hasn't
go onto a
been-
blog and say that what I'm saying and doing is
It-
sinister. I think
I
that,
said-
you know, I have never said anything
It
harmful
was
about you guys.
it's insidious. The reason
Insidious
it's
and this and that.
insidious
And I think that
is
this
because
is
it leaves
exactly the kind of
earth
thing. And I'm going to
vulnerable.
absolutely, you know, you invited me to an interview, I'm going to
Sure.
provide an interview. If you want to overtalk everything I say, you can overtalk what I say.
You overtalk
But-
us.
But I am telling you that I'm being interviewed. And so the point is that if...
It's mutual. See, you don't know this, and I'm sorry. We didn't have time to tell you our philosophy of how we conduct an interview, but I did kind of warn
okay,
you
so we want to have
that
a
we had
debate.
differences of
We
opinion.
have differences of opinion, and that's fine. But I think the most dangerous thing we can do is with, say, everyone has partial information.
Right.
To start making sweeping judgments that are negative. And you can say, well, it's not negative, we're just saying that they're in service to self versus service to others, and couch it however you wish. But if we go down that path, we're already creating a new cosmological us versus them, which is the absolute recapitulation of the mistake on Earth for the last 10,000 years. I think we can do better than that. I think we have to learn to look at these things, and let's say that everything that your philosophy and how you're viewing this is correct. If it's 100% correct, I would still say the path of wisdom is education,
Absolutely.
elucidation, engagement peacefully,
Absolutely.
higher states of consciousness,
Yep.
all of this.
Yep.
I don't think it consists in characterizations, name-calling, what have you. Now, that goes on the diplomatic front and between nations on the earth. And I think we have to be very careful not to engage in that sort of anthropocentric projection of the current state of duality of the human condition on these visitors. I think it may be much more difficult to make those kinds of assessments. But if we go down that path, what we'll be doing is that we'll be dragging the baggage of the old era into this pivotal time, this embryonic time, where we're trying to transition to a new civilization, the hallmark of which will be universal peace. I don't think we're going to be going into a period of time of competing planetary systems having wars. And I think that this is, although that is the Scientological view and it's many of the eschatologists' view, I think that actually we're going to go through a quantum transformation that's global and interplanetary that will make this quite clear in the coming years, if not months. I think that time is getting very short for how much more time we're going to have before there's this large transformation. And I think the other thing is to say, I would say to people, if there is a civilization that is here for their own purely selfish interests and have not a shred of altruism or concern for humanity or Earth, those are the beings I would want to meet with first. And I have said this for years. Because you need a diplomatic initiative to North Korea and Iran and China more than you do to Great Britain, if you're an American, let's say.
Absolutely.
And so this
But
is
you can't be in denial of the
there's no
potentiality.
denial here. I'm not some sort of